Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to this celebration of the victory of the communists in the revolution of 1917. We are in dire need of revolution now, so their inspiration to us, their example to us is one that we really need to keep in mind. We've got some excellent guests here tonight. On the table at my side I have Cde Montalvo, who is the Cuban ambassador to this country. And to the left, I have a minister from Nicaragua, no less, Mr. Whitaker, who is an advisor to the President on International Affairs. So I'm sure you're absolutely dying to hear from them. And also on behalf of the party, Comrade Jyoti Bra will be presenting our views and giving you a chance to hear what we have to say, and no doubt you'll have plenty of debate and discussion to address her with, which there will also be time for. So if I could start then, will you speak first or will you?
The minister is.
No.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
So, well, dear Ella, Harper, Jyoti, friends, it's a pleasure to share with all of you in this party annual celebration of the Great October Socialist Revolution. A historical fact that cannot be ignored and much less forgotten. Without the October Revolution, the end of colonialism and the liberation of dozens of people on all countries would not have been possible. So thank you too much for this opportunity. I would like to begin by conveying to you the greetings of the Communist Party of Cuba to all of you. And I think that this is an opportunity and a privilege for me to make some comments about current Cuban situation, because there is a link between the Cuban Revolution and, of course, the legacy of the Revolution of October. It's impossible for me not to talk about what happened last Thursday in the United Nations when 185 countries voted in favor of the Cuban resolution calling for an end of the blockade. This is very, very special for me, never in my life. Okay, thank you. 185 countries voted in favor of the Cuban resolution calling for an end to the blockade against Cuba. Only United States and Israel vote against resolution. It's necessary to remember that more than 80% of the Cuban population was born under the blockade. Since 2019, the Trump administration escalated the application of the blockade to extreme limits, making it crueler and inhuman, even during the pandemic. In the first 40 months of the Biden administration, the damage caused by the blockade resulted in losses of $50 million per day. It's not necessary to add any comments. The persecution of financial, commercial, and investment transactions is incessant and obsessive. The arbitrary inclusion of Cuba on the list of the countries sponsoring terrorism has intensified the financial persecution against Cuba. It is true that Cuba can buy limited quantities of commercial products in the USA, always under permits issued for each purchase, but we are obligated to pay in advance and cannot access to credit. So is not an example of the common bilateral trade relations. It is true that in recent months, the Biden administration took steps to resume direct flights from the United States to other Cuban provinces, the sending of remittance and consular formalities. But these are positive steps, but they are very, very limited. They do not change the policy nor the economic, commercial, and financial measures which remain in force. The Cuban government has always expressed its willingness to discuss differences with the United States, to move towards understanding despite our differences, and to develop civilized relations based on mutual respect without undermining our sovereignty. We will never renounce to the system of social justice that we defend. We respect the right to each country to decide the political system it prefers, but we demand the same respect for our own. Cuba does not cease to renew itself under the principle of changing everything that must be changed, as Fidel taught us. Under the most difficult conditions, we implemented the measures approved by the party for the updating of our model. We made progress in the decentralization of the economy, the empowerment of the state-owned enterprise, the creation of small and medium-sized enterprises, both private and state-owned, the participation of science, technology, and innovation in all internal processes, the computerization of our society. We have to achieve a more efficient economy and give our heroic people the welfare they deserve. The human being continues to be our priority. We do not apply neoliberal recipes to solve economic problems, and we never do it. Never. We take on the challenges of the present with the same determination that we took on those of the past. We have survived many things, many challenges. We will survive these hard times, and we will fight to our last breath with faith in victory. Thank you. Thank you very much to you all for supporting us in our demand to end the blockade and to respect our right to live in peace. Whatever change in Cuba, do not never renounce to one of our principles. We want to construct a socialist system that can provide the most justice possible to all people. Thank you very much.
Folks, and the important thing for us is the example that the Cubans are setting us. You've seen the almost impossible difficulties that they have had to face, and they have stood up, and they have fought, and they have kept going. Isn't it amazing? Now, I have to tell you that all that amazing courage and persistence is going to be demanded from you in the years to come as the world slides into recession and the rich try and take it out on us, and as we resist we can expect persecution. But what are we going to do? We're going to emulate Cuba, or we'll do our best. I'm not sure we can be as good as Cuba, but we'll do our best, okay? And we'll need all that courage and all that strength. So without further ado, we turn to another country which has had to struggle against all the odds, a long civil war and under tremendous difficulties, still facing slanders, lies, attempts to interfere in their elections, everything. So can I please call on Comrade Whitaker to come and who is the minister advising the Nicaraguan president on foreign affairs. So we're really, really honored to see him here today. And I'm sure you're going to be very much enlightened as well as enjoying what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, comrade. More than any governmental position, I wish that we are all comrades, comrades in this struggle. Ruling. See, we have, okay. President of the Communist Party, Comrades Jody Bear and Zane Carpenter, Vice Presidents, Comrades militants of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Comrade Ambassador Barbara from Cuba, my sister, you fought many years side by side, Comrade Ambassador from Laos, Comrade Giselle, I nearly forgot your name, from Nicaragua, my sister of many years also of struggle. I bring you fraternal greetings from Nicaragua, the land of our immortal anti-imperialist fighter, general of free women and free men, Augusto C. Sandino. I bring fraternal greetings from the land of the Sandinista Popular Revolution, the Sandinista National Liberation Front, the land of President Comrade Daniel Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo, who together with thousands of Nicaraguan combatants continue to fight and build a lasting people's revolution, keeping alive the flame of social justice and defending people's power. It is an honor to participate in this significant tribute to remember the great October Revolution. a transformative milestone for the Soviet Union and the world, which among so many great legacies left humanity with the unequivocal triumph over fascism and colonialism. The fascist threat continues to be present in the world today. When world capitalism, in one of its most grotesque forms, once again endanger the peace and well-being of the peoples of the world. The Great October Revolution teaches us the importance of building popular unity, not only to conquer political power, but also to maintain this popular power, for which having a united and cohesive advanced political instrument to lead society in its struggle against capitalism and imperialism becomes of fundamental importance. There is no doubt in any progressive, revolutionary, or socialist mind about the danger that excessive greed and the globalizing concentration of wealth exacerbated by an almost absolute control of liberal democracies, the military industry, corporate media, and information technologies represent both for the planet and humanity. For the Nicaraguan people, the struggle for independence, self-determination, and national liberation has always been present in our history. The heroic anti-colonial resistance of our original people moved to the confrontation with imperialist intervention, which tried to annex us to the United States in the mid-19th century. Imperialist arrogance has acted with the mentality that our region is their backyard, that they have the right of violating our national sovereignty whenever it occurs to them. In over 100 years that Nicaragua has formally gained independence from the Spanish and European colonies in general, because in the end it is the same self-interest of the colonial and imperial system, our small country with less than 130,000 square kilometers and some 6.5 million inhabitants has been intervened militarily at least 4 times by the most powerful military force on the planet. And on each of those occasions, they have been defeated and rejected by our heroic people. Dignity, the vocation for struggle, and national liberation have marked our history, marked our political culture, and have marked our anti-imperialist political identity. Throughout this journey, we have been clear that either you are on the side of the popular movement or you are on the side of the oligarchy, allied with the forces of foreign intervention. The vast majority of the Nicaraguan people have chosen the side of the popular movement. The triumph of the Sandinista Popular Revolution in 1979 immediately became a target of imperialism and its national lackeys, who tried by every means in their disposal to undermine and destroy the emerging popular revolution. But once again, they could not destroy Sandino's worthy example, despite mining our ports, poisoning our waters, and financing an army of mercenaries. Throughout the 1980s, they did not stop conspiring. They did not stop attacking us militarily. They did not stop trying to destroy the example of the beautiful Sandinista revolution, which taught the people to read, vaccinated boys and girls, restored the rights, ensured production of vital food in conditions of economic blockade. The reactionary anti-imperialist forces, aggrandized by their action against the socialist bloc, against the Soviet Union, against progressive thought in the world, proposed that the United States was determined to lead a unipolar world where it would give free rein to concentration of wealth and the debilitating globalization of the world. Under these conditions, in 1990, Nicaraguans went to elections rigged by the interests of the empire, with a gun to our heads, with the threat of yet another direct military intervention. These elections opened the path for the neoliberal darkness we forced to endure for 16 years. We had to face the destruction and misery caused by the neoliberal policies that spread like wildfire among the oppressed peoples of the world, impoverishing the workers and concentrating wealth and power in the hands of the intervening North. Neoliberal policies that made it clear once again that there are only two options: be on the side of the popular movement or be on the side of the empire and its lackeys, the national oligarchy. Oligarchy that takes many different forms, even that of progressive converts that seek to confuse and divide the popular movement. Between 1990 and 2016, neoliberalism was concerned with dismantling the advances of the popular revolution, with trying to divide the people and its vanguard political instrument, the FSLN. They spent 16 years trying to erase the popular Sandinista revolution from the imaginary of the people through fear and misery. The Nicaraguan people once again chose to defend the historical legacy of the popular revolution, and in 2007, despite the enormous media machinery, the use of emerging electronic platforms, and access to financial resources provided by oligarchy and the empire, the Nicaraguan people managed to overcome adversity, and under the leadership of Comandante Daniel Ortega, the FSLN came to power again to resume the path of the restitution of rights, progress, and social justice. This new stage of the Sandinista popular revolution began facing difficult and adverse political conditions. The constant stalking of the North American empire and its European emissaries, and the destructive nature of the national oligarchy in all its forms, including those who had betrayed the ideals of Sandino and placed themselves at the service of foreign intervention. Despite the constant harassment of the counter-revolutionary forces, the people, the good government of the FSLN, managed to promote the greatest social, political, economic, and restitution of rights advances known in the history of Nicaragua. Inclusive social programs, economic stability, infrastructure construction, and above all, rights for everyone, women, youth, indigenous, Afro-descendant, workers, peasants, all felt the fresh breeze of the well-being and the dignity of being the protagonist of their history. The Nicaraguan people experienced the longest period in peace with growth and an equitable distribution of its history. By 1918, after 2 periods of government led by the FSLN, the significant advances in the country's indicators were beginning to be reflected worldwide. The safest country in the hemisphere, after Cuba. Among the 5 countries with the greatest gender equality in the world, universal and free access to health and education, universal access to drinking water, sanitation and electricity, roads, infrastructure, decent housing, food production, food security, record numbers of unionized workers and corporatized peasants and artisans, record exports, macroeconomic stability. Above all, a country acting with dignity in the world, giving no breathing space to the denunciation and an unequivocal condemnation of capitalism and imperialism as the cause of misery, inequalities, and the destruction of the planet. But the empire, its local lackeys, with their sense of oligarchic superiority, were stalking, attacking, dividing, and preparing to try to destroy this revolutionary project. This is how in 2018, after intense media campaign, spreading falsehood and exercising terror in the streets, they attempted a coup to try to disrupt the good governance of the FSLN. However, the unity of the Nicaraguan people, our historical combativeness managed to defeat this new attempt against the Nicaraguan popular movement. The story here is not only that the failed coup tried to unsuccessfully destroy the revolution. The true story resides in the Nicaraguan people's capacity to resist and triumph in the face of new destabilizing methods, siege, aggression, and violence put forth by the imperialists. After so much falsehood, so many attacks in the form of sanctions, and new attempts to divide and intimidate us, of the instrumentalization of so-called human rights system, after going through the COVID-19 pandemic, the Nicaraguan people have been able to recover, only to return to the path of well-being, the restitution of rights, and the consolidation of popular power. Nicaragua continues to be an example of dignity, of revolutionary firmness, of clarity of purpose. The FSLN fearlessly assumed its responsibility in building a more just world society, without bowing down to those who attack us and firmly facing those who have chosen to surrender in the arms of the empire's interests. Communist brothers and sisters of Great Britain, you can be assured that the Sandinista popular revolution lives and grows stronger in Nicaragua, that the popular movement moves forward victorious, building the popular power, that the Sandinista Front for National Liberation will continue to defend the victorious banners of revolution. Thank you very much. ¡Viva Sandino! ¡Viva! ¡Viva Fidel! ¡Viva! Yes.
Viva the mic.
Well, those were extremely rousing speeches, and honestly, Nicaragua sounds like a complete paradise, and I hope I shall have time to visit it before I
Well, we
die.
can expand on that.
But it is absolutely extraordinary what can be done in spite of every dirty trick that US imperialism can throw at a country, and really it has been extremely serious. But anyway, I have been a little bit remiss because we've got a lot of very, very welcome guests in the room who are a bit shy and didn't actually want to say anything. I'd like to welcome, first of all, the newly appointed ambassador for Laos. I hesitate to pronounce his name, but it is Mr. Dwangmani, not Sudi. I'm sorry. That's fine. Okay. But Laos is another country which really has suffered tremendously from the effects of the wars waged by US imperialism. They're still being blown up, people, little children and peasants in the countryside with the bombs that were laid. It's really awful. And I think, we stand in solidarity with all the hard work that you're doing to, restore the beauty of your country and the livelihoods of your people, which is quite unrelenting, magnificent. Now, Mr. Tu Minh Tu is supposed to be coming here from the Vietnamese embassy. course, was an example to all of us for the most unrelenting and brave and incredible and victorious fight against US imperialism led by the communists. Hapal was brought into the movement. This is our former chairman, Comrade Hapal Bra, who has had to retire because of his disability, but he still remembers the glorious days of the marches in support of Vietnam, and how inspired we were by all the people in Vietnam. It was because of the people of Vietnam that some of us joined the communist movement in order to, because we could see, what a brave population could achieve with the right leadership. Absolutely fantastic. And last but very much not least, we welcome two comrades from the Chinese embassy. And comrade, your name is? Zhao. Okay. Now, of course, only recently the Communist Party of China held its 20th Party Congress, and Comrade Xi Jinping gave a report to this Congress where he detailed the magnificent achievements that the current government has been able to make in just 5 years since the last Congress. And they are tremendous. The number of people lifted out of poverty, the infrastructure that's been built, the waterways, the canals, the roads, the airports, the ports, then also the modernization of the army, because although China goes everywhere in the world saying we must have harmony, we must work together, we must cooperate, anything else is a disaster for everyone, for goodness sake cooperate, then they are very realistic and they know that they do have to defend themselves. So it was we had a very inspiring session at the embassy on Monday where Comrade Ambassador went through the main points of the report. And as I say, very, very inspiring they were. And one of the things you would have been struck by is the extent to which China holds out the hands of friendship to everybody. I mean, in this country, we get unremitting propaganda about how hostile China is and how awful, how badly it treats people and how undemocratic and awful it is. Well, the truth is just the opposite of that. And, in this country, the media are trying to make us hostile to China. They're actually preparing for war against China as well as war against Russia. And therefore, they want us all to hate the Chinese. But the Chinese, they're not completely unfazed by that. And they say, no, we are your friends. And they are our friends. So finally, I want to present apologies from the Rocío Maneiro, the ambassador for Venezuela, who would love to be here tonight, and she's been to previous October Revolution rallies, and she always makes a very inspiring speech. Unfortunately, today she was feeling quite unwell, and it was necessary for her to bow out. But she sends her good wishes and looks forward to next year when hopefully she'll be able to attend. And we've also had good wishes sent by Mr. Kim Song-gi of the North Korean Embassy, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. He's unfortunately tied up with certain problems that have arisen, which he's requires to give urgent attention to. So he's been unable to come today, but he, again, will be looking forward to being back with us. Since you saw him last, his English has got wonderful. So he So, anyway, Jyoti, do you dare speak after these wonderful speakers? I'm sure you'll do your best.
Apparently, I need to do this thing. So I was asked, thank you so much, comrades, it was amazing to listen to you all, and very inspiring. It's one of the things that we love about our October Revolution meeting is having international guests to remind us something so important that's right at the heart of our movement, which is we are an international movement. We have allies all over the world. We have brothers and sisters all over the world. And particularly important for us here in Britain, when for so long the communist movement has been in decline and communist activity has seemed like a marginal, odd sort of a thing to get engaged in, to remember not only to understand intellectually, oh yeah, we're the future, but to know in practice, we are the majority. We are with humanity. And believe me, when there's a few of you leafleting a huge demonstration, it's helpful to remember that. So now, I've been asked not to forget to let you know some things about the party, so I'm going to do that first so that I don't get to the end and get told off. So I'm going to give a little plug, first of all, for our website. Please make sure, comrades, that you are regularly visiting thecommunists.org. It is the best place in Britain to get analysis of what's really happening as opposed to what the mainstream media and even a lot of the independent media will explain to you what's happening. You can get, and I'll talk a bit more about this later, you can get a lot of useful information from independent media, and you can get sucked into a world of, an endless stream of information from much better sources than the mainstream sources once you tap into them. But what they don't give you is true analysis of what's behind it all. They can give you a whole lot of facts, and that's very helpful, but they can't orient you for the struggle. They can't tell you what you ought to do about any of it. It can just fill up your time and your head with stuff, but in the end, it's another vortex that you fall down if you're not careful. And you can become as addicted to that as people are to, the BBC or The Guardian, feeling like, I just need, if I get a bit more of this, I'll see what the answer is. You won't get the answer from any of those places. So small as we are, we claim to have something that nobody else has, which is truth, which is analysis based on class interests, which is what's missing from everything else. So, and if you guys don't already know and don't already use it, I would strongly advise you to get onto Telegram. Our party has a Telegram channel. It's the best way to make sure you're keeping up with all our regular postings to the website, to our YouTube channel, to our podcasts. All the rest, all of our media goes on our Telegram channel, so it's the one-stop shop, if you like. And of course, to let you know that if you like what you hear here today, if it inspires you to think about what you can do for the cause of the working class, what you can do to help bring the future a little bit closer, the answer is to join us, to let us train you to become a scientific socialist, a Marxist, a fighter for the future, a fighter for socialism, a fighter for the working class. And all the information you need about joining is on our website, of course, because that's how the world works now. So I was thinking a little bit about the topics of tonight. We're here celebrating the 105th anniversary of the October Revolution. And we're in a situation of deepening, the deepest ever overproduction crisis of the global capitalist system. And we're facing this rampant, accelerating drive to war. And how do we make sense of it all? How do we respond? How do we work out what our interests are? How do we know the answer to these things? And the answer to all those questions is scientific socialism. And that, for me, is what ties together everything we've talked about here this evening and the reason that we've come here. What is scientific socialism? You know, the bourgeoisie talks about Marx. He's some old dead white European. Nothing to do with you. Why would you? And he's a man. So all you women, that's half the population, don't need to listen to him because he's a man and he'll just mansplain things to you. Everybody who's not white, I don't know what proportion of the globe isn't white, probably about 4/5. They shouldn't listen, right? People who are young, they definitely shouldn't listen. Probably everybody who's alive should listen. He died a long time ago, right? What has Marx got to do with you, some old dead white European? But do physicists say that about Isaac Newton? Well, why would I think about Isaac Newton? He died hundreds of years ago. He's just some dead white European guy. Surely everything he had to say is totally outdated. Do biologists say that about Charles Darwin? Just some old dead white European guy. What's he got to do with me? I shouldn't listen to him. Do biologists in Nigeria have to make new biology because Darwin was a white guy and we shouldn't read him? As soon as you ask yourself those questions, you can see it's ridiculous, right? And yet, bourgeois propaganda is so strong that we accept this nonsense when they say it about Marx. Who was Marx? He wasn't just some old dead white European guy. He was the founder of a science. What does it mean? Why do we say socialism has become a science? We say it because Marx discovered laws, objective laws that govern the behaviour of the capitalist system, objective laws that govern the development of history. These are phenomenal achievements. He founded a method that enables people for the first time to really analyse and make sense of things, not as separate, isolated phenomena, but in their context and in their motion, to make sense of everything that exists, everything in history. How phenomenal is that? Marxism applies to everything in the universe. Marxism is the highest achievement of human scientific endeavour to date. And Marxism is the ideology of the modern proletariat. What does that mean? Why is it? It's because it explains the secret of capitalist exploitation, lays it bare. Doesn't just show you how capitalism works, but shows you the secret of how it is that the owners of capital get richer and richer, and the people who produce all the work get poorer and poorer. That is explained by the laws of the system of capitalism that Marx discovered. He didn't invent them. They weren't his idea. He showed how they operate. He revealed their existence, the same way that Newton revealed the existence of the law of gravity. He showed us how history develops, how and why societies change. Why does that matter? Because it reveals the role of the working class. Not an idea, not a fantasy, not a dream. Objectively, the working class, the proletarians under capitalism, have a role, a historic role, to destroy the old society and build the new one. They are the ruling class in waiting. Thank you. So, scientific socialism is a weapon for educating and mobilising the masses, for helping them come to class consciousness and understanding that they're part of the class that is going to smash this society and build the new one. Scientific socialism is the weapon that enables the working class to fulfil its role and end the irrationality and the obscenities that are produced by the capitalist system. And of course, scientific socialism was what underpinned the achievements, all the achievements of Lenin, Stalin, the Bolsheviks, the Soviet people. It was the serious pursuit of scientific socialism. that enabled them to understand their conditions, identify their objectives, find out who their allies were. And every page of Lenin is stuffed full of discussion of who are our allies and how do we mobilize and lead them so that we can win. Lenin wasn't messing around with glorious failures. He wasn't no Trotskyite poser. Lenin was a serious scientist who used the science of Marxism as the weapon it was meant to be, successfully, and showed us all the way in doing it. Which is why he's another dead white European guy that we like to listen to. You know, he used Marxism to determine the relationship of the working class and its party with the other classes in society, to develop the class consciousness of Russian workers, to help them, to weld them into a mighty army. The Bolsheviks defeated feudalism. They defeated the Tsarist autocracy. They defeated capitalist imperialism. They smashed the Russian Empire. They didn't just smash it. They harnessed the power of the masses to carry through the revolution, then to defend it against all the inside and external enemies, of whom there were many, and then to build the most mighty state the world had ever seen at that time, the Soviet Union, that took titanic strides in every single field, in culture, in the economy, in, name a field, in science, in education, in space.
Military. Defending the working.
And of course, October 1917 was the beginning of the end for the imperialist system in so many ways. Because setting up, number one, setting up the working class as the ruling class and showing it could be done, and therefore it should be done. Showing it could be successful. They could hold on to power. They could govern themselves. They didn't need the class of exploiters to do it for them. Showing they could plan the economy to meet the needs of all the people and abolish all of the obscenities of capitalism that we are told are simply intractable and insoluble. That the different nations and ethnic groups could live together in harmony, in peace. That everybody could have a home and a job and security and a meaningful job, meaningful work. Imagine living in a world where every single job is a job that society needs, where you work for everyone and therefore for yourself. And where, as everyone is working, they're seeing around them society improve as a result of their collective labours. Imagine that. Imagine how you'd feel to be part of that endeavour. Imagine how your children would feel growing up knowing they had a future. And contrast that to the situation today in our moribund, decaying, declining world that has nothing to offer anybody except crisis, war, poverty, inequality, meaningless consumerism that fulfills nothing, broken societies, mental and physical ailments that come from not just poor nutrition and bad food, but from a total lack of meaning and social cohesion. We are social animals. And we are being trained to believe that we should survive as atomized units. But we can't. We actually can't, comrades. You know, our comrades in South Korea, who see the same problems in their society that we see in ours, the most decaying, decadent, horrific aspects of degenerating imperialist culture, they no longer talk about mental illness. They talk about social disease. And that's actually what we're seeing running rampant in the West today. We are afflicted with a social disease because capitalism has turned us into isolated, broken down individual units that can't function properly and don't know why, and try to make up for the lack of meaning in our lives by aspiring to stuff. If I can just get a big enough pile of stuff to sit on, my life is going to be all right. It's never all right, is it? This pile of stuff is never big enough. One piece of stuff is curiously unsatisfying. Go and get another one. Didn't work. What now? I went off on one. I was talking about the Soviet Union and what it achieved by a planned economy and collective endeavour, and what it showed to the world, what can be done when the forces of production that humanity has created, which are so powerful, when that power is unleashed by the power of rational planning instead of anarchic production for profit. And every success of the Soviet Union, every one of them, rested in Lenin and Stalin and the Bolsheviks' determined pursuit of scientific socialism. And every defeat our movement has suffered in the Soviet Union and elsewhere ever since those times has been rooted in the distortion and abandonment of scientific socialism. And that, comrades, is a lesson we really, really, really have to take to heart. So here we are right today in a situation of deepening crisis and a parallel accelerating drive to war. It's only scientific socialism that can help us understand these things. It's only scientific socialism that explains to us so clearly where all this chaos in the world market comes from. What's at the root of all these problems that seem to follow one after another? And you can be a total news junkie. You can read every twist and turn of the story. You can read all the analysis in the Financial Times, and it will take you round and round in circles and explain to you nothing. But comrades, if you put all that down and pick up Capital, within a few chapters, you'll start to see the light. Marx explained very clearly, the laws that operate in the capitalist system of production for profit and the contradictions that pull the system apart. And the contradiction right at the heart of this system is the crisis of overproduction. The fact that, on the one hand, the forces of production are expanding, and on the other hand, the amount of society's wealth that goes to the working class is shrinking. The workers are producing and producing and producing more and more goods for sale. But their economic position in society means they can't buy back all the goods they've produced. The markets get glutted with goods that can't be sold because the workers who made them are too poor to buy them back. That is capitalism in a nutshell, comrades. That is the heart of all the irrationalities that we see. And that single fact, once you understand it, this is not something you can legislate away. This is not something we can fix by pleas to the capitalists to be kinder, to be sensible. This is built into production for profit. Production for profit means that you don't pay the worker the full value of what he produces. That means wealth is being created in the form of products that can't be sold, can't be bought back again by the people who created it. It's right at the heart of how the system works. It can't be resolved under conditions of capitalism. It can't be. We have to understand that. We have to understand that. Why it is that reformism takes us nowhere. Why all the pleas to the capitalists to be kind will never work. And then, of course, there's the apparently senseless response of the imperialists to their crisis. You know, the independent media, like I said, they scratch their heads over this one. You see quite often in some of these channels, like commentators who can see all the things that are happening and explain them to you, will say to you, when they start asking themselves why these things are happening, they're totally stumped. They can give you loads of great information. But the best they can come up with when they try to explain why what's happening is our rulers are idiots. Well,
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss would appear to bear that out, right? Of course, interestingly, there is a phenomenon whereby capitalism in its decline, Marx pointed this out, I think in Capital, 150 years ago, that now that capitalism has peaked and started to decline, it produces no intellect amongst its leading exponents. There's a good reason for that. It's got nothing to offer humanity anymore. There's no more progress to come from capitalism. There's only regression. There's only retarding human progress. Now, if Marx was able to point to, I think it was John Stuart Mill 150 years ago and say, this guy's a pygmy, intellectually, can you imagine what he'd have thought if he was presented with Liz Truss and Keir Starmer and all these, you know, vacuous blocks of wood in our parliament today? They're empty careerists who serve monopoly capital for money, for a chance to be a bit famous, I don't know, whatever they think they're getting out of it.
Good pension.
Some nice holidays, no doubt. But scientific socialism allows us to understand that it's the internal logic of capitalism that explains the behaviour of our rulers. You know, the logic of capitalism is not the logic of the human being. And you have to understand that. When you're a capitalist, your logic is the logic of your capital. Marx, again, in Capital. You really should read it. Anyone who hasn't here, read it. It's very accessible. And there's some very poetic passages. And there's a point where Marx talks about the capitalist as being the personification of his capital, and how his capital whispers in his ear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Go on, go on, go on, go on. What does capital want in the capitalist system? To get bigger. So the logic of the capitalist in the capitalist system is not a rational human logic. It's the logic of his capital. Otherwise, if he doesn't follow that logic, he'll lose the battle of competition and he will no longer be a capitalist. You can't try to mix human logic and capitalist logic if you want to remain a capitalist. You have to retire from the field of capitalism and just go and live on an island somewhere with your ill-gotten gains. But they'll run out soon enough. As a capitalist, your logic is the logic of capital. And that means pursuing profit, and not just a bit of profit, maximum profit. Because again, the laws of competition demand it. If you're not earning the maximum return on your capital, someone else will be, and all the investors will go over there. That is the logic of capital. Money must be turned into more money, must be turned into more money, must be turned into more money, must be turned into... It's endless. It is endless. And this explains why it is that the capitalists can't see sense, can't learn from history. We keep having crises. Should we do something about it? Shouldn't we look at the root cause of all these crises and do something about it? No, I don't think so, because that's the end of capitalism. What about all these wars? We keep losing. Every time we go to war, we lose. Why do we keep going to war? But the logic of capital demands war. Demands war as the only way to escape the crisis while staying within capitalism. They don't want to end capitalism, so they'll drive to war. Why do they drive to war? They drive to war to conquer territory, to conquer markets, to conquer raw materials, to expand the scope of their looting and the size of their markets to sell goods into, to maximise profit. They also drive to war to destroy things that they can rebuild again afterwards. There's good money to be made out of war. It's not the main motivation for war, but it's definitely a very good sideline. Huge amounts, if the war is big enough, not just the arms industries, but the post-war construction industries are kicked into life. And that starts the next cycle of, oh, here's a bit of a boom, lots of things to rebuild, before the markets are glutted again and the crisis comes back. That's the endless story and cycle of capitalism. And since capitalism is now a world system with a global marketplace, it's a global crisis, a global drive to war, a global problem for workers and oppressed peoples everywhere. You know, Engels said, I think maybe in the Peasant War in Germany, but I could have got that wrong. Since socialism has become a science, it must be pursued as a science. That is, it must be studied. So who is it who needs to study this science? Professors? Students? It's every worker who needs this science. It's available to every single person who wants it. There's no barrier to entry. All you need is a determination to master it, and you will. I'll give you another little plug. If you don't know where to start, we have a study program on our website. Go and look at the bit where it says Marxism. Learn, something along those lines. What should you study? Is it any old thing? Is it anything that claims to be Marxism? No, definitely not. It's Marx, it's Engels, it's Lenin, it's Stalin. In particular, it's Marx, Engels, and Lenin, the founders of our movement, the most profound, deep scientists, scientific thinkers, who not only solved so many problems in a scientific way, but in doing so, gave us on every page a lesson in how to apply the Marxist method to concrete conditions, to material reality. They are teaching us not only theories, definitely not dogmas. They're teaching us, more than anything, their method. They didn't live in exactly our conditions, but there are hundreds, thousands of parallels, and there's a method. You know, we talk very often about the power of the collective and the importance of collective decision-making and collective leadership. It is really important. It's our best defence against taking wrong steps, and our best weapon at correcting ourselves when we go wrong. But you know, a collective is only as strong as the parts that make it up. All of you who are party members, who are thinking about becoming party members, who want to serve the working class, must understand that as much as the working class needs a party, and as much as the party needs a leadership, it also needs members who are educated enough to make sure the debate in the party is strong, that the decision-making is informed, and that the leadership can be held to account. How do you know? If you leave the study to somebody else and they tell you what Marx said, how do you know it's true? How do you know I'm not standing up here in front of you telling you a bunch of plausible lies? How do you know I'm not slightly distorting something important? I could do it on purpose, I could do it by accident. How would you know? You need to know, comrades. The whole history of our movement says, do not leave this task to other people. Yes, we respect, we value, we cherish the experience of those of our comrades who've been doing this a long time. But we also must emulate their example and make sure that they are not irreplaceable. Because our movement doesn't need one Harpal Bra and one Ella Rule, it needs hundreds and thousands and millions of them. Tell me how much time I've got left. I feel like I've gone on a while. Do you want me to stop? Do you want me to stop? Hands up who thinks I should wrap it up now. So we face a lot of challenges, comrades. Challenges nationally, challenges internationally. In every aspect of our work recently, we've been facing big challenges. Challenges in our party, challenges in understanding and responding to the national situation. And I hope everybody has seen and read our new leaflet on the cost of living crisis that comrades were giving out at the demonstration today. There's a longer article on our website with some analysis. We've made some demands, short-term demands, that we want to help workers to think about what this system isn't giving them and what they deserve, what they have a right to demand. We have a right to demand that we workers don't bear the burden of a crisis that we did not make. But we also have to recognise what this leaflet says at the end, that the market has proved itself to be totally unable to meet the needs of the people. That the capitalists have shown themselves to be entirely unable to run their own system for the benefit of society at large. And that ultimately it's only socialist science that will enable us to understand the causes of the crisis and enable us to create a real working class party to bring workers' power to bear in creating a society that doesn't just solve the problems that press on us so heavily right now, but actually offers us the prospect of a bright and fulfilling future. We'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Jyoti. That was extremely educational, and I think we will have all gained from listening to what you have to say in this era of finance capital. One of the things that's happened recently, that Lula is back. Hooray! And of course everybody is rejoicing because when he was last the president of Brazil, then he made sure that a good part of the profits that Brazil was making from the sale of raw materials and so on was going back to the masses in the form of better wages, in the form of health service, in the form of education, and all sorts of benefits that they were getting. Now he's back. He actually faces a rather more difficult situation because not only is the market for commodities very slack as a result of the slowdown in the world economy, but on top of that, interest rates are going up, so that the money that the financiers are extracting from countries like Brazil, countries with big debts, I mean, even the UK, but obviously a much more serious problem in Brazil, those interest rates are going up. And how is he going to balance the books? It's going to be very, very difficult. At the end of the day, it's by mobilizing the masses to build for themselves what they need and say goodbye to the exploiters. But it's going to be a tough struggle ahead, which we shall watch with great interest. And then we have the same struggle here. We've been living in an imperialist country. We've been very comfortable, thank you. We complain about all the immigrants coming, but why are they coming? They're coming partly because of war, but partly because we've extracted wealth from their countries so that in their countries they can only live a miserable existence. So they think, well, let's go back to the countries where our money's gone to and let's enjoy ourselves. Why shouldn't they? That's my view. But as I say, but the fact that we haven't, for the most part, our standard of living has been more or less all right. We've had free education, we've had free health service. All of those things are deteriorating very badly now, but nevertheless they created the feeling, well, we don't need a revolution, we can, just vote for somebody a bit better next time. But that illusion isn't going to last. It's not going to last this winter. And the big danger is that all sorts of populists will pop up making all kinds of promises which nobody knows whether they can ever fulfill, but they'll use the weakness of the working class, they'll go against the immigrants, they'll go against the wicked communists and all the rest of it, to try and blame what's happening, not on the capitalist system, but on some section of poor workers, and having them fighting each other, rather than fighting capitalism and fighting for a new society and fighting for a better world. So we need to be very active. We need to get out there. We need to be, we need to wrench people from the claws of the fascists trying to mobilize them. We've got a hard job ahead. And thank goodness we've got the examples of Nicaragua, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, and North Korea.
Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union.
China.
And China, more than that. Yeah, and China is showing us that it can be done, it shall be done, and all we need is the will and the science. Thank you. I'm told that you have to practice for these days by raising your voices in song. And Jyoti, can you